I've already been live for a minute. Wow. Horror stories. My door's cracked. Horror stories. Alrighty. When your someone starts late, I still need to read it for the people who would just watch it after it's done. So I can concentrate. The story, why am I so quiet? Because I can't hear myself. But, ouch! Wait a second. Okay. The story I'm going to read today is called His Slave Complete by it's underscore Rin underscore the underscore otaku, which I'm assuming is something got to do with anime. And from what I've read already, it sounds pretty cool. The little like description thing right here is Rin has a history teacher that scares her. Her friends all tell her it's an irrational fear and nothing to worry about, but she can't shake the feeling. He would creepily glance at her during class, follow her in the halls, and stalk her at lunch. Her friends didn't acknowledge it nor notice it. No one but Rin could see him for the creep he was. Ooh. There's a whole bunch of other horror thingies. Ooh. I think I just found my new addiction on Wattpad. 32. Waddy. Okay. I'm gonna read this. Alrighty. History. I sighed as the bell rang in the room. The teacher dismissed us, and students ran through the doors like a herd of elephants. It's time. Time for the class I despise the most. It's not because of the curriculum, nor the subject in general. It's the history teacher. My friends poke fun at me because I'm scared of him, but they don't understand the creepy glances he gives me in class, the way he lingers in the halls when he's near me or my friends, and the constant taunting. My friends just say he's being funny, but they don't see him the way I see him. You're just being paranoid. Lighten up, they constantly say. I don't have a way to describe the way he makes me feel. Creeped out? Scared maybe? I don't know. But what I do know is that he's scary and a suspicious man. I was walking slowly behind the throng of teenagers in front of me, all of us heading to history. I didn't want to be first to walk through the doors, so I always made sure I was one of the last people who walked in. We all spread out to our desk and sat down and stared up at the history teacher. He was at the front of the class, as usual, in front of the dry erase board. He had a podium in front of the board that he stood at, so then he didn't have to walk around and carry his textbook. He was writing stuff down, so I took this as an opportunity to work on a drawing I had started at lunch. But he cleared his throat and said, "All right, guys, turn in your textbooks to page 139. We are continuing to discuss the discovery of Australia and Oceania." Crap, I thought. I'll have to work on it at study hall. I looked up and was immediately greeted by his creepy glance, right in my direction, sending a shiver up and down my spine and the quick urge to run. Chapter 2. Paper cut. Did I say what chapter 1 was? Chapter 1 was history, and chapter 2 is paper cut. I continued to stare down at my textbook, reading along every once in a while, in case he randomly chooses a student to read a paragraph. I continued to stare down mindlessly. I played with the pages, quickly stacking the ends against my fingertips. I waited for him to call out a student to read. I'm always scared he'll choose me. I don't like reading out loud, and it makes me wonder if he was thinking about me as he stood at the podium reading. I rubbed my fingertips against the edge of the paper, becoming tense. I started to rub it quicker until I swiped my finger swiftly to the right and the paper sliced through my fingertip like a sword. Yes, it was. Sorry, interruptions. Sorry. Why did the screen get darker? Anyways, I looked at my finger and saw the rows of cuts across it. The student sitting across from me took notice of my bloody fingers and gasped. Oh my gosh, Mr. Miles? No, Mr. Mills, Rin is bleeding. I'm a tad bit glad she had said that, and also nervous because the room went totally silent after her rather loud remark, and all eyes turned to me, burning a hole in my head the size of a basketball. The teacher started to walk over, but didn't have to come too close to notice. What? Sorry. With the Stop it! Now I lost place. Oh, then yes. My conversations on my own, butt out. Okay. Hi. The teacher started to walk over, but didn't have to come too close to notice the large amounts of blood gushing from my fingers. Goodness, take that to the bathroom, he said. Okay. I lost my place. Again, he said jokingly as the class laughed at his remark. I quickly stood up, holding my stinging finger, and went out the door. I didn't have to walk too far to get to the bathroom, thank goodness. I rushed through the swinging door and went to the sink. I turned the cold water on and dripped my stinging finger into the cold water. I sighed in relief as the water soothed the burning paper cuts. Why did you have to cut your finger? So stupid, I scolded myself as I grabbed a paper towel to dry the water and soak up the dripping blood. The door opened with a somewhat loud creak as the girl who sat across from me came in with a pale face. Wow, that gave me a heart attack. You okay? Mr. Mills sent me in here to check on you, she said with wide eyes. That creep. I thought as I stared at the paper towel around my finger, the blood starting to seep through. Yeah, I'm fine. It just stings a tad, I replied. I took the bloody paper towel off my finger and went to grab a new one, but the girl got one and gave it to me before I could grab one. Here you go, she said, a little less worried than before. I smiled in reply and proceeded to wrap it around my finger. Mr. Mills told me to let you know class will be over soon. she said, heading to the door. She smiled at me one last time before she opened the creaking door and rushed out to try and beat the bell. I walked back to the mirror and looked at my reflection. My blonde wavy hair was a little frizzy, so I used my uninjured hand to get water and wet it down. I turned to the side slightly to see the back of my long hair and check in case it was frizzy. Then the bell rang and made me jump out of my skin. Oh crap! All my books and stuff are still in the history room. I thought as I started out the bathroom door. This is his free period, isn't it? Great. Just me and him while I collect my stuff. I shuffled to the history classroom and wrapped my hand around the cold doorknob. I awkwardly shuffled in the room to my desk and grabbed my stuff, but was stopped by his voice. You need a Band-Aid? He said, walking to his supply cabinet and digging through his stuff. Nah, I'm fine. I stopped as he waltzed over and gently took my hand and proceeded to put the Band-Aid on my cut. A shiver rushed down my spine as his cold hands wrapped around my finger, gently applying the Band-Aid. Thanks, I said, avoiding eye contact with him. Sure, he replied. He walked back to the podium and began to write something down. I started over to collect my books and exit, but before I was out the door, he stopped me again. Wait, take this, he said with fake exasperation as he handed me a piece of paper. It was a slip for my next class's teacher that explained why I was late. Thanks, I said awkwardly once again as I turned the doorknob. It's called his slave. I said awkwardly once again as I turned the doorknob and headed to study hall. It was under the horror story category thing. Who are you yelling at? Can you hear the music? Shut up. Can you hear the music? What? Okay, good. Well, there's music in my ears.
Lonnie,
What?
I need your help.
With what?
Mommy wants a turquoise cup.
A what?
A turquoise cup, but I don't know.
She talking about the Starbucks one, I think.
I freaking know now. Shut up.
No.
Give me.
I so wanted to grab this and just. I wanted to grab this photo show you jumping to grab the cup, but I'm gonna be nice. I searched up non-copyrighted music, and I got this, whatever. That, and I got it turned down really low anyway.
You live?
No! I'm video chatting Casper.
Hi. Oh!
That's what you get. Why?
What?
Why did you drop the milk? What? Why did you put the milk on the floor?
What are you doing?
Interrupting my live stream. What's wrong with you? Anyways. Chapter 3, Intruder. After the end of that somewhat horrible day, I started on my way home with piles of homework. Of course, I did easiest assignments to hardest. I like to ease into homework instead of hitting myself with the hard stuff first. It just seems like the most logical thing in my opinion. So once I had finished my mountain of homework, I checked the time. 5:37, huh? I actually finished these assignments quicker than yesterday. I chuckled to myself as I fell back on my bed. It was nice to feel the soft sheets against my skin. My eyelids slowly became heavy as I became comfortable. Quietly, I slid into the sheets and laid my head on the cool pillow. I'll take a short nap. The room slowly became dark as I closed my eyes, finally losing consciousness as I began to sleep. Bang! It just says bang! I was startled by a loud crash that echoed from downstairs, and I became worried. That was too loud to be any of the cats. My mom was in town, and my dad was at work in a whole other state. The once warm feeling from being enwrapped, I'm assuming typo, from being enwrapped in blankets escaped my body as a rush of chills crawled down my spine. What? Why am I waiting? I don't like waiting. That's what it said. Wait, let me read it again. Yeah, my mom was in town. Her mom was in town and her dad was at work in a different state. Ouch. Can I continue reading? What am I supposed to do in a time like this? Is it a burglar? Should I call 911? As these questions crept into my mind, I was unaware of the creaking footsteps coming up the stairs. The sound of my doorknob being touched brought me back. And instinct. Oh, why did I? Okay, an instinct kicked in. I rolled off my bed and quickly crawled under my bed, still unaware of who would be on the opposite side of the door. A bead of sweat trickled down my forehead as more questions came flooding into my head. But before I could do anything else, the door flew open to reveal a pair of rugged sneakers. I didn't recognize the pair, and that made me tremble with fear. The feet began to move, and the heavy footsteps caused the floor to creak. Tears began to flood my vision as I watched the feet circle around my room, making it clear the person was searching for something. I closed my eyes and let cold tears roll down my cheeks. Shut up! It's not defeat, it's the feet. So get it right. Just sit still until they leave. I thought to keep me calm, but I became my own enemy in this fight and stay unnoticed. Questions circled my head. Shut up! I I thought to keep me calm, but I became my own enemy in this fight to stay unnoticed. Questions circled my head and made me begin to breathe heavily. What if the person finds me? What if he decides to stay for a long time? What if he kills me? The weight of all this tension was starting to suffocate me, causing me to panic. I quickly scanned my surroundings to find a weapon, something, anything. From the corner of my eye, I was able to see something shimmering in the light that shined from the hallway. I turned slowly to avoid making noise and saw that it was a baseball bat, the metal one my dad got for me, but I never ended up using it like he had hoped. I finally grew tired, impatient, and stressed. At this point, all I wanted was to get my hands on that bat. The pressure of the haunting questions felt like a bowling ball on my chest, causing me to move closer to the bat. I was finally driven to the point of insanity, and I came out from under the bed screaming, collecting the bat, and turning to the intruder. I was ready to violently swing the bat at whoever was there, but the tall figure standing there was someone I would have never imagined. Ah, so that was where you were hiding. He inched closer, causing me to tremble, making my grip on the bat to weaken. I think it was supposed to be causing. I looked in fear at his face. Mr. Mills? I stammered, hardly able to form words. Dun dun dun. Chloroformium. So chloroform. Whatever. What chapter is this? Wait. Okay, chapter 4. It doesn't have number chapters, it just says that. I trembled as he slowly began to inch closer, his face illuminated with the light flooding in from the hall, making his appearance more frightening. I backed up slowly as he continued towards me, his hand stretched out to me, motioning for me to put the bat down. I wasn't able to swing it anyway due to the trembling fear causing me to remain froze in place. He jumped at me swiftly and in one quick gesture retrieved the bat as well as pinned me against the wall. I screamed in terror and he covered my mouth. If you make another loud sound, you will regret it, he whispered, enraged, into my ear. He remained by my ear as his hot breath gazed against my skin and he stood there. Shadows danced across my face as he moved his arms to hold me against the wall and reached behind him with the other. The room filled with the pungent smell of chloroform. I suddenly realized what he was about to do, and I squirmed and attempted to flail my arms to attack, but it proved to do nothing as the last thing I remember seeing was being engulfed in darkness. Chapter 5, A New Life, Part 2. My arms itch. I released a little more as my vision slowly became clear. Bright light illuminated my surroundings, and I quickly discovered that I was in a car. What is happening? I can't remember much, only fragments of memories. I could remember doing my homework and taking a nap, then a loud bang. All of a sudden, I'm under my bed. Then the last thing I saw was his face, close to mine, as I was pinned to a wall. Ow. I turned slowly toward the driver's seat and saw that Mr. Mills, why do I want to say Miles? Mr. Mills was driving. Tears welled up in my eyes as I looked over at him. Hanger. What? Huh? I don't get it. Hangry. Who's hangry? I'm lost. Up in my eyes as I looked over at him. Fright quickly overcame me. I don't know how to continue. No, that's not what I said. I said continue. Oh, shut up. Realization hit me. I know. I just like being funny. Tears welled up in my eyes as I looked over at him. Fright quickly overcame me as I then realized that I had no idea where we were going, and his intentions. Why? He suddenly noticed again. Okay, here we go. I'm back. I'm back and better than ever. He suddenly noticed that I regained consciousness and grinned at me, as if he hadn't just drugged me and is now taking me to an unknown location. He's insane. He looked back to the road. I looked down to realize that I was tied with duct tape. Very thoroughly, I might add. And my seatbelt was pulled across the numerous layers of tape. My mouth was free of a gag or any sort, which meant he was taking me somewhere with no one around for miles. He wouldn't be stupid enough to leave me able to scream at the top of my lungs if we were surrounded by people. Have a nice nap, he chuckled from the driver's seat. I refused to muster a reply or even look his direction. All I did was sit there, hoping that I might just wake up from this nightmare soon. We sat in silence for what felt like an hour, nothing but the low hum of the engine making noise, until I was slightly startled by pop music suddenly blaring from the speakers. He turned the volume down slightly, but didn't bother changing the station. I thought it was a little strange because I don't see him as a guy who listens to pop. That led me to guess that he left the music on for me, maybe in an attempt to slightly comfort me, but there was absolutely nothing he could have done to comfort me. I got tired of the ongoing repetitive song and I decided it was best to attempt to sleep again. I had no idea where we were headed and it was dark, so I had to assume that it was late. My head slowly began to tip back, my eyelids growing heavy. A little thought crept into my head. What if he stops the car as soon as I fall asleep and murders me? Attempting to battle the sleepy feeling that was growing heavier, I pinched my leg. The feeling of something bad happening would go away. I then decided it was too much. Screw it. My life isn't in my hands anymore. I guess it never was. I slipped into the darkness and gave up trying to fight the sleepiness. God dang it. What's with the new life part? I want to see the picture. It's a house. It's a nice house. Chapter, I believe, 6. Yeah. New life part 3. I groaned and slowly opened my eyes. Bright light blinded me. Is it morning? I squinted my eyes in an attempt to see until my eyes finally adjusted. The car had stopped in front of a small, traditional styled house in the middle of a clearing in a forest area. I didn't recognize the area, nor did I see any other house for miles. I slowly tilted my head to the left and saw an empty driver's seat. Damn it! What happened? Where did Mr. Mills even go? I craned my neck to the right to try to see out my window, but I had limited vision since I was tired. I turned to the left to see if I could look out the back window, but I couldn't turn enough to see anything. I decided I should try to slip out of my seatbelt and get out. It was a weak attempt, barely even an attempt. It left me frustrated and in tears. I had no idea what this psycho desired, and I was desperate to never discover it. I jumped at my car door being opened slowly, and I turned. Despite having blurry vision from crying, I knew it was him. He reached in over me and unbuckled my seatbelt. Then he wrapped his arms around my waist and pulled me out of the car and lifted me over his shoulders. Like the view? It's gorgeous out here, he said while looking out at the forests and open fields with tall grass and occasional trees. I'd like it more if different in different circumstances. As he walked towards the little house, I made the stupid person mistake of trying to squirm free once more. I swung my legs around like mad while trying to kick enough to fall off his shoulder. I continued until I kicked his gut. It wasn't a purposeful move, but I was glad it happened. He bent over in pain and released me and allowed me to hit the ground. I landed on my back and my head came down right after. It smacked the pavement at almost full force, caused my vision to blur. I could hear Mr. Mills to my right still moaning while I attempted to break the tape encasing me. I lifted my arms up and was able to use my sweat to my advantage by loosening the tape. I was able to slip it over my head, and my vision has begun to slowly return to normal. I could see the trees nearby and got on my feet to run their direction. Just as I had stood up, I felt two large arms wrap around me. He pulled me to his chest and began to squeeze hard. "Where do you think you're off to?" I heard him angrily mumble by my ear. He stood up with me, still in his arms, tightly squished against his chest. He grabbed some trash bags from the trunk, not the tree, of the car and entered the house. The front door was a large mahogany door with windows along the door. When you enter, there's another door that locked from the outside, so he could effectively keep me in the house. When entering the house, you immediately see the dining table with 6 total chairs around it, and the kitchen not far behind it, tucked away in a corner of the house. You turn to the right and see the living room with the TV in the middle and 2 windows on each side, with curtains for privacy. There was a fireplace to the right of the TV and a long couch facing the TV by it. There was a recliner by the fireplace that faced the opposite direction of the TV, so we could sit right by the fire. The house was nicely decorated, with plenty of bookshelves and paintings and flowers spread out everywhere. There was also a color theme of light blue and white, which gave the whole house an open feeling, but the colors seemed to be out of place to me. He set me down after locking the second door and putting the key in his back pocket. "Welcome to your new home," he chuckled. I looked around, feeling slightly dazed from the impact of my head on the pavement. An intense headache slowly came, and the room looked like it was spinning. He might have noticed, 'cause he quickly brought me to the long couch beside the fireplace and laid me down gingerly. He ran into the kitchen and came back about a minute later with a bag of ice. He placed it slowly on my forehead. I could hardly see the concerned look on his face looming over mine. "He's doing it again, acting like nothing happened." He straightened up and walked out of the living room. I heard him open the door behind the couch and out of the living room. The cold drops of condensation dripped from the bag and onto my pale skin. I felt it drip down my neck and fall off. I wish I was able to escape as easily as that. To just vanish without a trace seemed like something I'd give up anything to do. I closed my eyelids and listened to the faint sound of rain beginning to pelt the roof of the house. The harmonious pitter patter calming me down slightly. The silence allowed me to just relax and reflect on the events of the past 24 hours. No. Thinking about it all caused a wave of emotions to quickly rush over me: anger, depression, but worst of all, loneliness. I missed my family, the ones I hold near and dear to my heart. Thinking about it made my eyes pour tears like a wa- waterfall, but it didn't bother me. I needed to feel the sadness, the pain. It was all I had left that I could control. My life is no longer mine to control. Chapter 7. Morning. What's my time? Okay. I awoke once again on the long couch where I last remembered laying. It was why I can't read all of a sudden. It was pitch black out the windows with a light yellow glow from the moon shining into the room. My headache was still there, but increasingly smaller compared to earlier. I held my head in my hand as I sat up. I scanned the dark room and noticed a sleeping Mr. Mills. I said Miles again! I scanned the dark room and noticed a sleeping Mr. Mills on the recliner by the fireplace. He must have stayed there watching me. A shiver ran up and down my spine at the thought. Stop that! Ugh. A shiver ran up and down my spine at the thought. I wanted to stand up and slap him, knowing that he was there the whole time I laid asleep on the couch. But the thing that confused me the most is that he helped me after I had kicked him and attempted to escape. After all that, he still worried about my well being. He kept on doing that this whole time, treating me nicely, even though he kidnapped me. Insane. I sat back on the couch, not sure what to do. I was tired. I had just woke up. I lay there staring at the ceiling. Man, man, was it an interesting ceiling. I laid there lost in thought until I noticed an orange light slowly filling the room. The sun began to rise, and I looked out the window. I could see the fluffy clouds with lines of orange and red lining their bottoms. A gorgeous view, I will admit, but with the circumstances, I had a difficult time focusing on it. I heard Mr. Mills stirring in the recliner, so I laid back down quickly to pretend that I was asleep. I put my head down and faced the ceiling as I closed my eyes, pretending to be sound asleep. I could hear him groan and mumble, not desiring to wake up. I heard him stand up and begin to walk around. He went to the door behind the couch and stayed there for a few minutes, coming back out and going into the kitchen. 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 Not too long after that, the aroma of bacon and eggs filled the house. I could feel the empty feeling in my stomach because of the. Oh my god, I'm not even tired. Lovely. What happened? Oh, you gotta be kidding me. Because of the lovely aroma. My body wanted food, but I didn't want to eat. I was just too depressed to eat, even if I wasn't pretending to be asleep. Okay. A little bit after, a little bit later, and he must have been done with his breakfast because he moved around the house more, constantly going in and out of the door behind the couch. He finally slowed down and came into the living room. I could tell he was right by the couch without even looking. His warmth stretched to me. He inched closer, and I felt his heat become increasingly stronger as he came closer. I could feel a pair of tender lips on my forehead, and then he walked out of the house while he locked both doors as he was leaving. The sound of his engine starting told me it was safe to sit up. I watched his car speed out of the driveway and out of sight. I forgot it was Thursday and he had to work. Those poor students don't know his true nature. I sat there contemplating. There could be another victim. He could bring back another innocent student for whatever he wanted me for. I felt fear for myself, for the students, my worried family and friends, and his family and his friends and family who don't know who he truly is. I teared up as I began reliving my kidnapping in my head, the nightmare that jump scared me even while I wasn't asleep. Someone must realize the irony in this situation. My friends must find it weird that I grew the irrational fear of my history teacher. Then a few days later, I'm missing. I guess that could they could think it was anyone else. I mean, he is still going to school like every other day to avoid suspicion. Clever thinking on his part. My mind wandered off as I sat there, staring into space. My stomach growled loudly, but I continued to ignore it. I refused to eat. I just want my life back. Chapter 8. His what? The rest of the day trudged along. I had nothing to do, nowhere to go, so I basically spent my time by the fireplace. Okay. I had lit a fire and was enjoying its warmth as it hugged me, the only thing that I liked at his dang place. I heard a car pull up and finally noticed the time. Was it already 4:06? I guess time goes fast when you're lost in thought. I remained in the recliner, even when I heard his car door close. I didn't care at this point. He could do he couldn't do any more damage. Well, he could, but I don't even want to think about that, or else I might lose what's left of my sanity. He opened the first door and locked it, then came into the house and locked that door. He turned to me and gave me a faint smile as he came into the living room. You have a nice day? He asked. Why do you try to get me to socialize? I'm not going to. I stared at him, my lips remaining closed. He sighed as he walked to the blue couch and sat down. You have to talk eventually. I'll make you at some point, he grumbled. I looked down at my feet, still silent. Should I at least mumble a response? I don't want him to hurt me if I don't. My day was crappy, I mumbled quietly. I heard a small laugh in response, so I assumed he had heard me. Hey, I have to tell you about your job. You are here to be my maid, servant, slave, call it what you want. I have maid dresses and aprons in my mahogany dresser in the bedroom behind the sofa. You will have certain jobs you will need to do every day or punishments will be issued. His what? You must call me master from now on. You will be in charge of waking me up every morning for work at 6:30 a.m. You must have food ready for when I come home. You will do the chores around the house like cooking, sweeping, dishes, mopping, vacuuming, laundry, all that. You have to wear those maid dresses all day except for when you go to bed. Weekends you are allowed to wear normal clothes, but you have to still clean. I know it seems like a lot, but I will be easy on you these next 2 days. But if you do something faulty, Forget something, misbehave. I will punish you. Punishments will change the more you have them. They will become worse the more you receive. The more you receive them. So I would suggest to not frick up if I were you. He laughed a slightly evil laugh as I looked to the floor, trying to keep the tears from escaping. It's too much. The stress is what'll be the death of me. I would rather kill myself. A tear rolled down my cheek, and I tried to hide the fact I was crying. But Master noticed and came over to me. He cupped his hand under my chin and lifted my head up as more tears fell. He wiped them from my face and whispered, "It's okay. You will be great." "Shut up. Please leave me alone. I can't take it anymore. Just kill me already." I'm sorry, I like looking at the pictures. Kitty. Chapter 9. Okay, I got Chapter 9, Made in Mister. The day ended with me cooking his dinner for the first time. He never said what he wanted to eat. He kind of expected me to know. I just made him some grilled chicken with baked potatoes and salad. It was simple stuff to do, for me at least, so I figured why not. He stretched his arms up and yawned loudly after he finished the last piece of chicken. I stood in the middle of the kitchen and clenched the end of my white maid apron in my fist. The thing made me uncomfortable, and I felt like he was staring at me all the time. It was a simple black dress that ended mid-thigh. It had a little white lace at the top of the dress and sleeves ending at my shoulders. It had more lace at the bottom and a simple white apron with some lace at the bottom of it. There was a last thing that he wasn't that what that I wasn't comfortable with either, and that was the keyhole on the chest part of the dress that exposed my cleavage and made me blush. It was torture to walk around him in this, and bending down made my face feel hotter than heck itself. Master stood from his chair and went for the white door behind the living room. I had never went inside it until earlier when I fetched my maid dress. Turns out that it was just Master's bedroom, which was also now mine as well. I was incredibly curious about what it was at first, but now I regret it. And frankly, I also regret my life. I leaned my head and looked at the clock. It was almost 9 o'clock, which meant it was almost time to sleep, in the same bed as Master. I shuddered at the thought of the disgusting man under the same covers as me. I quickly rushed around to check and see if the house was all nice and clean before it was close to 10 o'clock. Master gave me a bedtime, which was at 10. He said if I was late by even a second, that I would be punished. He seemed to stress punishment, even though he never specified what it was. He only said that it would start slow and then more punishments I got, the worse they'd get. I just didn't want to find out what the last punishment was. I went into the bedroom after I made sure that I had finished all my work. Master was already in bed and reading a book, and he only glanced up and looked back down after acknowledging my presence. The room had a mahogany dresser by a mirror that was beside the door on the right. To the left were 2 chairs with a little bookshelf in between the two. The bed was in the middle, right in front of the door, a few feet across the room. The bed had side tables on each side that had potted flowers on them. and windows above the bed. There was also another door between the side table and the chairs on the left wall, which was the bathroom. The whole room had a color scheme of earthy brown and light green, with some tans mixed in. I grabbed my pajamas, a simple white tank top, and blue and gray striped pajama pants, and went to change in the bathroom. I came out and began to sweat nervously, realizing that it was now time to get into bed. I slowly made my way to my side of the bed, which was the right side. I pulled up the covers and awkwardly slid into them without a word as Master was still reading beside me. I laid there and turned so my back was facing Master. Let's see if I will be able to get any sleep, though I have a feeling I won't be able to. I lay there and closed my eyes, at least making an attempt to sleep. I was lost in thought, trying to think of anything other than this awkward situation that I was in. I had slowly drifted off, but then the bed made a creak sound and Master had turned the light off and came back to bed. I could feel the covers move as he climbed back into the bed. I felt the warmth of his body behind me and realized he was right behind me, almost touching my back. I silently wished for a sudden death or sickness to overcome me, for something to stop this mess and to get me out of here. Something to save me. Last chapter for today. I'm running out of time. Chapter 10. The next morning. The alarm sounded early in the morning. I had barely gotten any sleep, so I refused to wake up. But I had to, sadly. Master told me I would have to wake him up in the morning so he can prepare for work, and if I didn't, I would be punished. I rubbed my eyes as I sat up slowly. Master was still sound asleep, even as the alarm continued to buzz. What do you mean? $53 to go to what? I rubbed my eyes as I sat up slowly. Master, Okay. Even as the alarm continued to buzz. That scared me. I think it's because I stepped on something. Yep. I'm out. Stop. Stay. I touched the cord. It scared me. I stopped the alarm and stared at him. I have an opportunity to grab the key and escape, but I don't know where he last placed it. I shook my head and reached my hand to him. Lightly, I began shaking his arm. After that failed, I shook him harder. Still no luck. I called for him as I shook him vigorously. He finally managed to open one eye and stare at me. A shiver shot down my spine, and I felt like I had frozen, forever stuck staring into his brown eyes. He began to sit up, which sent me back to reality. Move away from me now. Move away from me. Don't kiss me. What's wrong with you?
I love you.
Go away.
No.
He pulled up the covers and stood from the bed as he looked over at me, still remaining silent. He walked around the room silently, grabbing clothes from his drawers, going to the bathroom, leaving the bedroom to grab food, coming back to the bathroom for a quick shower.
What?
Put the milk back in the fridge. I rubbed my eyes and contemplated sleeping once again. He was going to leave soon, so I could actually get some rest. Then again, I have all these chores to do, or else. I sighed as I stood up and exited the bedroom, with Master still in the shower. I sluggishly began to clean. There wasn't much, mostly because I cleaned up just last night, but I still had to do it. As I remained busy at work, I didn't even notice that the water had stopped running in the bathroom. I began to dust the mantle of the fireplace until I felt move until I felt two cold hands. Yes. Until I felt two cold hands slowly wrap around my waist. All the all the color drained from my face as I stood there like a statue. He rested his head on my right shoulder. Hear a lot of talking and not a lot of cleaning. Shut up. He rested his head on my right shoulder and pulled me closer to his chest. I could hear his heavy breathing in my ear, and I heard his heartbeat. I'll miss you while I'm at work, he breathily whispered playfully into my ear. My limbs went numb as he spoke every word, and I wanted to kill myself then and there. He released me and left me to stiffly stand in front of the fireplace. I could faintly hear his car start and begin to go down the driveway. Once I could no longer hear his car, I felt too much. What? Shh. Go away! I could faintly hear his car start and begin to go down the driveway. Once I could no longer hear his car, I fell to my knees in tears. I was traumatized and feared for the worst. I don't deserve this torture. Why me? I'm leaving you on a cliffhanger. Dun dun dun! I am out of time. But whenever I decide to do this again, next chapter is called Bedtime. So remind me if I forget. I'm not even going to read ahead. See, look. I'm going back. Not even gonna read ahead of you guys. Ooh, I'll read that later. But that's all. I don't need your help, and I don't need you. What? What are you doing? Also, why are you on Norman's account? Okay, I'm leaving because you're confusing me. Bye. 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 Are you sure you want to stop streaming? What's in? What's in? Ah! I thought something. What? See ya.